regarding the trips that Cameron does down Baja. And so it's kind of cool now to circle back around and have you on the podcast talking about your angle of involvement with him on those. So if you're interested, go back through the Baja Sessions and find the episodes where Cameron Steele is interviewed. Jim, you are also an aficionado just of Baja, being there on the ground. I know you like to surf. Like you said, you and I just did a 4-day trip in northern Baja in side-by-sides. What the best way, and I'm going to be right with you, the best way to see it is to see the peninsulas from the air if you have the means and the wherewithal to do that. But if you're not doing it from the air, where do you like to go, and what are some of the special places to you down there that you've gotten to experience from the ground?
I think, some of the special areas are, obviously the farther you go down, I think the better it gets. And areas such
Why do you think that is?
You just you get away from the people. Like the old Baja saying, you meet the nicest people on the worst roads.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. If it's a real nightmare to get into, there's probably a really nice person at the end of the road. And, or sometimes a bad person, but most of the time a nice person.
Right.
But, so anyways, I really love Solo Sports. It's a windsurfing camp.
Yes,
It's
in
Punta San Carlos. The first time, I get this, with Cameron, we're going to this place and we're going to sleep in tents. And I'm not a camper. I don't, I never go camping. So I don't have the camping gear or anything like that. I mean, I'm all about camping, but I just don't do it. And, so I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. Here I'm going to land in the middle of nowhere, sleep in a tent, whatever. I get there. I've never slept so good in my life. The guy who runs the place, Kevin Trejo, is so great. All his guys, Joey and those guys that run the place, I mean, they are so accommodating to you. The food, you're eating steak and lobster. You're drinking anything you want, from a $1 bottle of wine to a $500 bottle of wine. They've got it all. And
wait a minute, you can't forget the Baja fog.
And the Baja fog, exactly. So it's just incredible. I mean, this place is like, wow, this is like an oasis in the middle of nowhere. So that, and then, just recently in the last 5 years, I've been fortunate enough to get down to Scorpion Bay. And I've grown up in Southern California. I grew up always in the waves, body surfing, not a lot, but I love it. I love doing it, but I just seem to work too much. I love riding my jet skis in the surf and stuff. And, but we get down there and go surfing, and as you can attest, I mean, you're definitely a very accomplished surfer. I mean, it's probably one of the best waves in the world. I mean, as far as a beginning surfer or even an intermediate, or, I guess if the waves get big enough, an expert surfer, but you can ride a wave. You can ride one wave in Baja that's probably longer than if you added up a year of surfing for a guy like me in Southern California. One wave you've ridden more time standing up than you would do in a whole year in Southern California. So it's absolutely, I always tease people and say, if you ever want to learn to surf, you go to this place and you get on the wave not knowing how to surf. By the time you get off the wave, you're a decent surfer, And so it's the only place I know if you can learn how to surf on one wave.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, it's amazing that we've been fortunate enough, you and I have been fortunate enough to go down there with guys like Sonny Garcia, the guy's, multi-time, world surfing champion, and to watch him teach people or have him help people that they've never surfed before and they're surfing with a world champion. It's to me, it's unbelievable.
All that wrapped up into a 1,000+ mile long peninsula.
Yeah.
So many places for sure. Yeah.
So that, I love that place. Obviously Bay of Conception has got, the 2-sided beach down there. That place is incredible. Going to look at the cave paintings, and just on our last trip we flew out to some cave paintings and stuff like that. And, we were all looking around at these cave paintings, and then, a couple of us hiked across a big area and looked back at everybody, and no one could even see the good paintings that we were looking at. We were all looking at these little small ones, and had we get a little farther away. So that's another great thing about flying. You're able to get to areas and look at different stuff. And so just recently, a few days ago, I got hit up with by a friend of ours to say there's supposed to be some Spanish explorer buried up in the mountains somewhere, and he wants to go try to find it. So
Wow.
I don't want to say exactly where it is, but it's somewhere down in Mexico, and he has an idea of where it is. And so they want to try to find the gravestone and stuff like that. So
Very interesting.
it'd be pretty exciting to be able to, if you could. I mean, it's a needle in a haystack, but it'd be pretty cool if you could come across some history like that.
So I would imagine that, I mean, I'm not going to say helicopter pilots are rare, but it would appear to me that in the family of pilots, if you will, there's probably less helicopter pilots than fixed wing pilots. Is that
absolutely
a fair statement?
I forgot the numbers now, but it's like 1%.
Yeah.
And
then of those that actually have been flying in Baja and or are proficient in it. I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is that my take on what you do, you are probably a very small fraction of the entire globe of people that does what you do in Baja. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. I mean, as far as I know, I don't think I even know of anyone that flies down in Mexico as much as I do, in the helicopter.
Yeah.
You get the guys that go down for races and stuff like that, but very, very few do. I mean, last year alone, I did 4 trips down the peninsula and then back. So 8 trips total, down and back, for 4 different jobs. And I think that's pretty rare, for most people. I mean, I know a lot of people that have done it, that they've never even gone past, she's even not even Guerrero Negro, so not even halfway down.
So what are some of the pitfalls? We talked about, the permits and whatnot, but if you wanted to go down and do this, I mean, fuel and range and
the biggest thing is fuel.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is, and luckily that's one thing that we now have under control by getting the proper permits and everything else to be able to have a fuel truck follow us along. And because, a helicopter will only go 250, 300 miles before it runs out of gas. And that's, it doesn't, you run out of gas pretty quick. So
yeah, you probably don't coast very well.
What's that?
You probably don't coast very well once you run out of gas.
No, they don't coast very well. They coast straight down about 1,700 feet a minute.
So on that note, and not to get grim and gory, but has there ever been any scary, sketchy moments in the air, almost in the air? I mean, has there been anything that was alarming for you while you were down there flying?
No, nothing really. Nothing really stands out. So far so good. Back to off-road racing just recently. Last year's Baja 500, I believe, they had a drone strike. Somebody was flying a drone and hit a tail rotor, and that's didn't turn out well for that guy. He's okay. Everyone on board was healthy and fine. Not even really a hard landing, but caused hundreds of thousands of dollars damage to the helicopter, and they had to be taken out of there on a trailer. So not a good outcome. I mean, as far as safety goes, it was a good outcome, but financially not a good outcome.
So we talked about the geography and special places and so on. One of the other things that I had on my list out of curiosity, again, I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time in Baja on the dirt roads, and I've seen some amazing animals that, from what I understand, are fairly rare. I've seen a mountain lion. I've seen the bighorn sheep. I don't know exactly which kind or what kind it was, but have you ever been able to spot any interesting locations of animals or different animals from the air?
It's funny you say that, because I think it was, I can't remember which trip we were on, but so we were down in Baja. I think we were coming into, I can't think of the town, somewhere over on the coast, pretty far down. And we were coming in for the night, and we landed. I think it was actually, maybe it might have been Guerrero Negro. And at the bar, we're starting to talk to these guys, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're filmers. We're down here looking for this rare deer or something like that." I'm like, you know what? I saw a deer today, and we filmed it. And I guess it's this is Discovery Channel. They were down here doing a whole big thing looking for this deer, and we got the footage of this deer running for him. And
my gosh!
So I think they ended up giving them the footage for Discovery Channel. But so stuff like that. I mean, you see horses everywhere, cows everywhere, like you said, the sheep, and I've seen sharks, whale sharks, which I thought when I first started flying to Mexico, I saw one whale shark, and I literally saw it for maybe 10 seconds, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Then I started flying more and more down there, and it's like you could be flying along and see 10 to 15 whale sharks in one sighting. Look straight down and go 1, 2, 3, all the way to 15.
Wow.
And that's pretty incredible to me. I mean, that's the biggest thing I've ever seen down there, and I think probably the most majestic. I have just been dying to jump in the water and go swim with them, but unfortunately, I don't have autopilot in the chopper yet, so I got to take the controls.
Yeah, and I will attest to the fact that I actually have jumped out of the helicopter into the ocean. There was no whale shark below, but and it is on someone's camera or someone's phone somewhere. And as you've said many times, everybody says, "Oh yeah, they want to jump off the skids into the ocean." They say they want to do it from real high up, and then you get out there, and then they tell you to go lower and lower. And I know I absolutely said go lower, and then when I jumped off, I screamed like a little baby all the way down.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, I see people jumping off cliffs that are way higher, but for some reason, when you're in the helicopter or something, they seem to get a little spooked that, they're like, oh, that guy didn't jump very high. Go way higher. So I'll start out there, like you said, and like, you know what, let's go back down a little lower. And usually we end up around the same height, 20, 30 feet. And it's about as much as they want to do.
So, we've had this conversation before. I'm fascinated by it. Like I said, I'm fortunate to have been able to fly with you and a few other people down there in helicopters. And I would agree. It's probably one of the coolest things that you can do. The ability to fly at low altitudes and see things from the air, to put things into perspective, to land, I guess, I mean, whether it's legal or illegal, to be able to land in remote places that you would otherwise not be able to get to. And just the ability to fly slow and really take things in that's somewhat difficult to do from a fixed wing aircraft. I'm fascinated with it. I've dreamed of and thought about, what would it be like to, could I do it? How much does it cost? We've had some realistic conversations about what that's like. And I know this is a podcast about Baja, but we're also talking about helicopters now. If there's anybody listening that is interested in becoming a helicopter pilot, what are some of the things that person should be aware of? Yeah.
It's funny. So like when I was getting my pilot's license, a guy named Ken Krause, definitely a veteran in the helicopter business and stuff like that. And he said, hey, if you're not going to buy a helicopter, don't bother learning. And, or if you don't want to make it a career, don't bother learning, because you just can't rent them places and things like that. And I kind of went like, wow, that's weird. But, my mindset was like, oh, my friend's buying one. I'll go with him and just be able to fly his. I'll be fine. And I kind of give people that same thing. Like, hey, if you don't want to do this as a career, or unless you're, independently wealthy, great. But you really can't just rent helicopters and go anywhere and do anything. Unlike airplane clubs, so if people are really into aviation, I try to steer them into fixed wing stuff. But if they're just mindset on it, then yeah, jump in the helicopter game. It's the greatest. I love doing it. And like you said, I fly planes too, but my plane, it'll only slow down to like 70, 80 miles an hour before it wants to fall out of the sky, where, we want to look at stuff at 7 or 8 miles an hour. Yeah. And, so many times I fly around places and I go, do you think if we landed right here, we're the only people ever in the whole existence of this earth to be standing right here, that's ever touched their feet on the ground?
Right.
And I've done that a few times. And what kills me is I'll be there and you'll see some old like Coke can or something that's such a bummer, and I'm like, yeah. How did those people get there? Like how?
And
how
why did they leave their trash?
And leave their trash. Yeah. But the helicopter gig is awesome. It's very expensive. It's expensive to, even the fact that I own my own helicopter, every minute I'm still throwing a $5 bill out the window. Yeah. So just think about that when you're driving down the road today. Look at your watch, and every 5 minutes, that's just maintenance alone, just to maintain the helicopter. So take $5 bills and just flick them out the window. And I have a very inexpensive helicopter, let alone, if you got a big helicopter, now you're throwing probably $300 a minute out the window. Yeah. So it gets awfully expensive, awfully fast.
Need to have your big boy pants on if you want to